big crowd. Everybody's at work. Too bad you all have to work.
Too bad. Too bad.
I'm on vacation.
Trying to retire, but it's not working.
No, it doesn't work. I was giving a class the other day. It was actually funny. And I was talking about sannyasis. And I made the point, it's a funny point. I said, sannyasis are like parasites. And there's actually a Bhagavatam verse that sort of verifies that.
No.
What? You want to know which verse that is?
No.
Yeah, it's in the 11th canto. It's the story of the Avadhuta Brahman, and he's learning different things from different entities.
Yes.
So what he learned, let me just put this, send a notice out so everyone can watch. What he actually learned from the honeybees and the beekeeper, that when one is a sannyasi, then the householders do all the work. And the sannyasi's like the beekeeper who just collects the honey.
They're smart.
So I was just thinking, it's like the beekeeper's like a parasite. Because he doesn't contribute anything to the honeybees. He just like takes all their honey away, but they store it up for the winter. And the poor honeybees, they have to starve to death or something. They don't starve. They just make more. Okay.
Nice effect.
You can turn off the go. No, we've got a lot of people watching now. Okay. Satashi Shimad. His Divine Grace Abhaya Chalanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shitwaita Garadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopikapadath Sayam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai. Mathuram Ki Jai. Jagannath Swami Ki Jai. Manamaya Ki Jai. Srimati Vasudeva Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Prastaya Budle Srimati Bhaktivedanta Samani Tiramani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharni Nivashesha Shunyavali Paschatya Deja Tarani. So, maybe we'll just pick any verse. Oh, Kamala. That's nice. It's got a lot of people watching this morning. Whoops. Okay, so let's read from the beginning of the fourth canto, third chapter, text 1. How about that? And this chapter is entitled The Talks Between Lord Shiva and Sati. So everybody can find that in their phones. So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 All right. Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Sada.
Sada.
Vidvishator.
Vidvishator.
Evam.
Evam.
Kado.
Kado.
Vai.
Vai.
Driyamanayo.
Driyamanayo.
Jamatu.
Jamatu.
Swasura Shapi.
Swasura Shapi.
Sumahan.
Sumahan.
Adik Chakrame. Sorry.
Adik Chakrame.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Sada Vidvishatorevam.
Sada Vidvishatorevam.
Kalo Vaidriyamanayo.
Kalo Vaidriyamanayo.
Jamatu Swasura Shapi.
Jamatu Swasura Shapi.
Sumahanati Chakrame.
Sumahanati Chakrame.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Sada Vidvishatorevam.
Sada Vidvishatorevam.
Kalo Vaidriyamanayo.
Kalo Vaidriyamanayo.
Jamatu Swasura Shapi.
Jamatu Swasura Shapi.
Sumahanati Chakrame.
Sumahanati Chakrame.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Sada Vidvishatorevam.
Sada Vidvishatorevam.
Kalo Vaidriyamanayo.
Kalo Vaidriyamanayo.
Jamatu Swasura Shapi.
Jamatu Swasura Shapi.
Sumahanati Chakrame.
Sumahanati Chakrame.
Okay, who wants to try?
Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
सदा विद्विस्तोरेवं
सदा विद्विषतोरेवम्
कलौ वैध्रियमानयो
कालो वैद्यमान्यो
जमातु स्वस्वरूपस्य
जामातु स्वस्वरूपस्यापि
सुमहान् अतिचक्रमे
सुमानचक्रमे
मैत्रेयवाचा
मैत्रेयवाचा
सदा विद्विषतोरेवं
सदा विद्विषतोरेवं
कालो वैध्रियमान्यो
कालो वैद्यमान्यो
जामातु स्वसुरुस्यापि
जामातु स्वसुरस्यापि
सुमहान् अतिचक्रमे
सुमहानतिचक्रमे
मैत्रेय उवाच
मैत्रेयवाचा
सदा विद्विषतोरेवं
सदा विद्विषतोरेवम्
कालो वैध्रियमानयो
कालो वैद्यमान्यो
जामाता स्वशुसरास्यापि
जामातु स्वसुरस्यापि
सुमहानतिचक्रमे
सुमहानतिचक्रमे
मैत्रेय उवाच
मैत्रेयवाचा
सदा विद्विषतोरेवं
सदा विद्विषतोरेवम्
कालो वैद्रियमानयो
कालो वैद्यमान्यो
जामातु स्वशुरस्यापि
जामातु स्वसुरस्यापि
सुमहानपि चक्रमे
सुमहानतिचक्रमे मैत्रेयवाचा
सदा विश्वसोऽयं
सदा विद्विषतोरेवम्
कालो वैद्रियमानया
कालो वैद्यमान्यो
जामातु स्वशुरस्यापि
जामातु स्वशुरस्यापि
सुमहानतिचक्रमे
सुमहानतिचक्रमे
मैत्रेयोवाच
मैत्रेयवाचा
सदा विद्विषतोर्येवं
सदा विद्विषतोरेवम्
खलो भैद्रियमानयो
कालो वैद्यमान्यो
जामतु स्वसुरस्यापि
जामातु स्वसुरस्यापि
सुमहानतिचक्रमे
सुमहानतिचक्रमे
All right. Ladies? Oh, yeah. One lady did.
Too late.
Two ladies. Okay. I wasn't listening. So, Maitreya Vacha.
Maitreya
Maitreya said,
Maitreya said,
Sada,
Sada,
constantly,
constantly,
Vidvishato,
Vidvishato,
the tension,
the tension,
Evam,
Evam,
in this manner,
in this manner,
Kala,
Kala,
time,
time,
Vai,
Vai,
certainly,
certainly,
Driyamanayo,
Driyamanayo,
continue to bear,
continue to bear,
Jamatu,
Jamatu,
of the son-in-law,
of the son-in-law,
Shvasurasya,
Svashurasya,
of the father-in-law,
of the father-in-law,
Api,
Api,
even,
even,
Sumahan,
Sumahan,
a very great,
very great,
Adichakrame,
Adichakrame,
past.
past.
Translation, Maitreya continued, in this manner, the tension between the father-in-law and son-in-law, Daksha and Lord Shiva, continued for a considerably long period. So purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The previous chapter has already explained that Vidura questioned the sage Maitreya as to the cause of the misunderstanding between Lord Shiva and Daksha. Another question is why the strife between Daksha and his son-in-law caused Sati to destroy her body. The chief reason for Sati's giving up her body was that her father, Daksha, began another sacrificial performance to which Lord Shiva was not invited at all. Generally, when any sacrifice is performed, although each and every sacrifice is intended to pacify the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, all the demigods, especially Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, and the other principal demigods such as Indra and Chandra are invited, and they take part. It is said that unless all the demigods are present, no sacrifice is complete. But in the tension between father-in-law and son-in-law, Daksha began another yajna performance to which Lord Shiva was not invited. Daksha was the chief progenitor employed by Lord Brahma, and he was a son of Brahma. So he had a very high position and was also very proud. It's an important verse. So, Maitreya Vacha Sada Vidvishaporivam Kalovaya Driyamanayo Jamatu Shwasharasyapi Sumahan Ati Chakrame. So, Omagana Timidanda Shad Shlakaya Chakshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigarve Namaha. So, let's analyze Daksha first. Daksha, of course, the word Daksha means someone who's expert. And actually that word is also used in reference to the 26 qualities of Vaishnava. That's one of the 26 qualities, is expert. It's interesting. Expert, of course, doesn't mean he knows how to do everything material, but Yasmin Vigate Sarvameva Vigatam Bhavati, because he knows Krishna, he knows the purpose of everything. So it's not that the guru has to know how to fix the cars and do all those things like that, you know. Things like, Guru Maharaj, what's wrong with my car? I don't know. Take it to a mechanic. So, but it means he knows Krishna. And one who knows Krishna knows everything. Anyways, but the word Daksha used in reference to Daksha Maharaj. He's not a sannyasi. Actually, the word Maharaj is a name for a king originally, or someone with a very exalted position. Because Raj actually means someone who's very passionate. So it means great passionate one. So it's only recently they started using the title Maharaj for sannyasis. Because I guess it's Kali Yuga, the sannyasi have to be passionate or something. So anyway, so it's only recently, because before it was Babaji or something like that. Babu, Babaji, things like that. Like Rupa Goswami. Usually you don't hear about Rupa Goswami Maharaj, you know. But it's something for preaching. Just like Prabhupada Institute and also Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur instituted the whole style of sannyas for preaching Krishna consciousness. But this is not the traditional style of sannyas. Traditional style of sannyas is wearing like a lungi, a white lungi, or gaucho, whatever you may call it, and just a wrap on top white. But this is the color of passion, actually. You know that? Reddish, orange, whatever. Saffron is the color of passion. So if someone likes red a lot, they're a very passionate person. If someone likes yellow, they're more creative. If someone likes blue, no, if someone likes blue, they're a loyal person. And someone likes green, they're independent. So anyway, so a little analysis for you. So sannyasis, anyway, so Daksha was definitely not a sannyasi. He was what we call expert in having children. He was what we call a prajapati. Pati, you know, he's the lord of the prajas, basically. Pati. Just like if someone's married, they should call their husband Pati Dev. Oh Lord. Imagine that. Oh Lord. So anyway, so Daksha was so expert at these things, and as described here by Srila Prabhupada, he was given a very high position. So the problem with being expert or intelligent or in any sort of proficiency in this world is that one takes credit for those things. Of course, we know that Krishna says, "I'm the ability in man," he says in the Bhagavad Gita, strength of the strong, all these different things, intelligence of the intelligent. So we have to see, actually it's interesting, there was one famous non-devotee who would always, he was a radio announcer, and he had a very famous show. Well, he wasn't a devotee, he was actually a rascal. So, but he would always say at the beginning of his show, talent on loan from God. It's really interesting.
Okay.
So just like everything is, everything we have is on loan from God. You know, our body's on loan from God. All these things, you know, what is it? Ishavasham idam saram yad kincha jagajam jagat tena jiktena bunjira magurtha kashasvidanam. Everything is owned and controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And do I need to speak louder or have a microphone closer?
This pointing towards you.
Yeah, one interesting thing about microphones is if you shorten this up, it'll balance here. Otherwise, if you stick it all the way at the end, it's going to tend to always go down. There's a process of leverage here. People don't realize that generally. They actually shorten it all the way to the end and expect it to stay. And then they have to tighten this up and strip the threads and everything. So, apart from that, talent on loan from God. Brain on loan from God. Everything. You know, if you're married, your wife is on loan from God. You have to see it like that. She doesn't belong to you. Nirmana moha jita sangha dosha. Nothing belongs to you. Isn't it? What belongs to you? I mean, you were born without clothes. And when you die, well, the clothes get burnt. So you won't have clothes when you die. So whatever. I mean, you didn't bring anything into this world, and you can't take your bank account out. And then when you leave this world, your children will fight over their inheritance, thinking it belongs to them. Hopefully that doesn't happen. So Daksha is thinking, Ishwaroham aham bogi siddhoham balavan sukhi. I'm the controller, I'm intelligent, I am actually expert at having children. And somehow or other, on the advice of Lord Brahma, I had to give my daughter to that Lord Shiva. And for him, the problem with Lord Shiva is that Lord Shiva doesn't have any caste. You know, basically, he's like an outcast as far as you're concerned. And he doesn't wear clothes. And he lives in a crematorium. And he hangs out with the ghosts and the spirits. You know, what a son-in-law to have. Can you imagine? If you got your daughter married to someone who walked around naked, lived in a crematorium, when he chanted the holy names, he just acted crazy. And all of his friends were like drunkards and everything like that. You think, oh my God, I just didn't do a good job with my daughter. And you'd have to be nice to your son-in-law. But you definitely wouldn't want to invite him to your house. Right? Let's say you're having a function in your house or something like that. Let's say your son was getting married to someone nice. You wouldn't invite your son-in-law to his marriage. He said, you know, he's really a character. And so what happened, you know, previous chapter, Daksha was doing this, Lord Shiva was sitting there, Daksha walked into the assembly, and Lord Shiva didn't stand up to receive Daksha. And actually, Daksha is at a lower position spiritually than Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is the best of the Vaishnavas. So he doesn't have to stand up to receive Daksha. In fact, he was in meditation. So he was meditating on Krishna. And so it's understandable he's not going to stand up when Daksha, you know, this guy who's simply interested in becoming expert in sex life and having a lot of children, comes in. So it's a problem. So Daksha is very proud. He's thinking, how could he not stand up to see me? And Daksha just like insults him. And this is all due to his false pride in his position. And so Krishna has an interesting way of cutting down people's false pride. Yashaham anugunavi harishe taddanam shanai. For those who I especially favor. So Krishna is going to show them show Daksha, Lord Shiva is going to show Daksha some special mercy. Because Daksha will not be able to carry out his service for Krishna, which is having nice Krishna conscious children, without coming down to earth. So this whole pastime that we're going to be reading here is to bring Daksha down to earth. In other words, to have him understand, you are basically just a humble servant, and everything comes from Krishna. And so in order to do that, Daksha, even at the end of this chapter, has to get a head of a goat. Actually, the next chapter. He has to get the head of a goat and conduct a sacrifice using, quite an insult. Can you imagine someone coming to do a fire sacrifice and he has a goat head on? It's quite an insult. So, another point is that we often don't respect very advanced devotees because of external symptoms. Like people sometimes didn't even respect Lord Nityananda because he acted like an avaduta. So it's described that one should not acharyamam vigyanivam avamanyeta karichit namarcha puja suyeta sarvadeva mayo guru. One should not actually judge a Vaishnava by ordinary material standards. One should not judge a Vaishnava by their caste. For example, in Vrindavan, in Govardhan, there are Brajabasis there who are very dear to Krishna. And they live with Krishna 24 hours a day. Krishna is their friend. And many of them, because they're so-called lower caste, they're not allowed in the temples. Did you know this? It's incredible. Here are these absolutely, pure Vaishnavas because they're Brajavasis, but they're considered lower caste. And that way, they're prohibited from entering the temples. Or somehow or other, they let the Westerners like me into the temples, because donations, isn't it? That actually overcomes caste distinction. It's interesting, people in India, so much interested in caste consciousness and even colors, even between people in India, someone's darker, someone's lighter, there's distinction, isn't it? It's amazing. I was just reading something this morning. There was one young man who was mistreating the young girls in the Krishna conscious movement, and they're both devotees. And he would criticize, he have girlfriends, this is the modern world, Even in the Krishna conscious movement, we have boys and girls having girlfriends and boyfriends, isn't it? I'm sure it happens here in Australia too. In India, not now, but traditionally, boyfriends, girlfriends. Prabhupada said, what you call anyway, we'll tell you. What you call girlfriends, we call PROS.
Yeah.
You understand? People didn't understand what that means. But traditionally, the women were so protected. They go out of the house. They had to be in a palanquin. Never send your daughter out of the house with a palanquin. At least a burqa. So anyway, getting back to the point. So even now, we find the young people criticizing their girlfriends as have been too dark.
Yeah, that's very common.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Even amongst the Indian community, with the boyfriends and girlfriends, you're just too dark. You can't get married to him because he's too dark. And it's just like, what? This is, of course, a great offense. To see a Vaishnava, or even a human being, according to their body. That is a great offense. So, anyway, especially if one offends a lady, then they could fall down from devotional service. This whole point. So one has to see a Vaishnava how? According to the Vaishnava qualities. What are the Vaishnava qualities that we judge someone at? Not how they look, not how they dress, but upon their compassion, the 26 Vaishnava qualities, their compassion, their tolerance, their taste for hearing and chanting. I mean, this is really the point. One has a taste, ruchi, for hearing and chanting. And see, Lord Shiva, he has such a taste for hearing and chanting. He's chanting Ram Nam all the time. And he's absorbed, just like we hear from the Chaitanya Bhagwan and also the Chaitanya Mangal, that when Lord Shiva gets Mahaprasadam, he starts dancing in ecstasy. How many of us, when we get some Mahaprasadam, actually start dancing in ecstasy, feel ecstasy? Mahaprabho Kirtana and Richakita Varitra Madhyan Manasa Rasena. So when it's described the pure devotee, when he hears Krishna Kirtan, he starts, the hairs on the body stand on end. Tears come from the eyes. Ashrutaranga Bhajo. How many of us experience this? Is it Gauranga Balite Havi? Pulaka Sharir Hari Hari, like this. When will that day come? So we should actually hanker for these things. And if we see someone who has that taste for hearing and chanting, then that person should be understood as a Vaishnava. And of course, we should see the activities the rest of the day. It's not that we see someone who smokes ganja, and say, well, it's like Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva has a special prerogative that none of you have. That I don't have any, of course. Which is, he does smoke ganja, but he also drinks an ocean of poison. Too, so you can drink it. If you can drink poison, then you can smoke ganja. How about that? So one should not imitate the great controllers. And that's sad. So, in other words, criticizing is very offensive. And Daksha is into criticizing. Because of that, he's going to lose his daughter and lose his head. So any questions or comments about these things? Yes?
Thank you, Gurudev. So Daksha being so proud,
Yeah.
and then also he offended topmost Vaishnava. But Krishna still shows him mercy.
Because he's a devotee. He's a Sakama devotee. He's not, like it's described about the previous sacrifice he did, even though Lord Shiva was offended there, the sacrifice was successful because it was a Vaishnava sacrifice. So it's not that being a devotee is necessarily a cure if you're not a pure devotee for everything. Many times we misunderstand what it means to be a devotee. We think if we dress a certain way and worship Krishna, we're naturally devotees. But to be a devotee means to be devoted. Anyabi lashata shunyam, yana karmana havritam, anukuyena krishnanu shivanam. To actually just be devoted. It doesn't mean you join the Hare Krishna club and get your Hare Krishna name and your badge and your special ring. Isn't it? You're one of the gang, That's it. People want to take initiation because they want to become one of the gang. Isn't it?
Yeah.
They don't want to be considered a bhakta. Bhakta this, bhakta that. Oh, I'm an outsider, right?
Because he was Sakama devotee, is that why he wasn't cleansed and didn't have...
Sakama means he had some desire. So
Yeah.
as long as we have some desire, then we're Sakama devotees. We have worshiping Krishna. We have some what's called ulterior motive that we want something. Like I often talk about what Satyanarayan Kata. People want something. They do business with Krishna. They go to the deity and say, if this business is successful, I will give 50% and you get 50%. They do that. They go to Tirupati, which is the richest temple, and they just drop everything off. And of course I tell that story about the one guy who dropped off a gold bar, but his son was accidentally dropped off into the hundi at the same time. And he wanted his son back. In America, we call this a statement, Indian giver. It means you give something, you take it back. It's all yours, Guru Maharaj, You take it back. Like we offer. People come to the temple and get their car blessed. Car puja. It's $50, $100 to have your car worshipped. Oh, it's a Tesla, it's $500. So, this is Sakama. And now Krishna understands this. In the beginning, we're all Sakama devotees. Chatura Vidal, Bhajanti. We want knowledge, we're inquisitive, we want relief from distress, or we want money. In the beginning. But after some time, by the association with devotees, we have to cultivate the Nishkam mood. We simply want to please you, Krishna and Guru Maharaj. And this cultivation is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita as cultivating the creeper of devotion, which starts with the Bhakti Lata Bij, the seed of devotion. And so one has to be aware of the weeds that grow. Because all of us, as we're performing devotional service, are also growing some weeds. False prestige and everything like that. And that's why we see, and we've seen in the past, so many spiritual leaders, not only in ISKCON, but elsewhere, fall down. And they were sincere. They're not demons. They're actually very sincere. But because the weed of false prestige is there, as Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur says, that one of the causes of anarthas are the byproducts of bhakti, the weeds you're growing. Then they choke off the main creeper, and then you're not able to develop a taste. Was that verse in the Bhagavatam? Shrama evi kevalam. Notpadi ed yadi rutin. Shrama evi kevalam. If you're doing your devotional service, you're not getting a taste for hearing and chanting, then you're just spinning your wheels, because you probably don't know what that means. For those of us who are brought up in areas where there's a lot of snow, we know what spinning the wheels is. You understand? You get caught in the snow and the wheels. That happened to me last winter, actually. I was parked on this land, it was snow, and I just tried to back up my valuable car. The wheels span, and I was just going, oh my God. And then you put it in the mode, you actually change the mode.
It wouldn't happen with my Raven.
You're four-wheel drive. So you change the mode and it still doesn't work, and then you have to give up your false ego and call for 3 or 4 strong men to push it. Isn't it? It happens sometimes. So anyway, that's what's called spinning your wheels. So many times, we're just doing this and this. We're so busy serving Krishna. And, so weeds are growing. And then we don't have a taste for hearing and chanting. And Bhagavatam says you're simply spinning your wheels. Not exactly wasting your time, but it's just like, what are you doing? That's how every day you should judge your advancement in devotional service. How much attraction do I have for hearing and chanting? And that's why when I travel, I carry this thing around with me. I can actually put it in my pocket. And then it's like all Prabhupada's books and all the stuff I want to read is all there. Chaitanya Bhagavad, Chaitanya Mangal, everything is there. I can't read on a mobile phone for a long period of time. That drives you crazy. Has to be something bigger. Even I have a bigger Kindle about this big. It's good. So, because it's so important to hear regularly. And then I hear Prabhupada's classes on a regular basis. And so just like connection, you hear this connection. Shru shru shro shradadana shavasadeva kataguchi. Shan mahatseviya vipra punya tirtana shevanat. So hearing is very important. We should never neglect that. And that keeps us on the right path. And also the association of devotees who can correct us if we happen to get too proud. because of our attachment. But Daksha was not willing to be corrected. So if you're not willing to be corrected voluntarily, then you be corrected involuntarily, which is what happened to Daksha. Yeah, so we have to understand, in one sense, we're all Sakama devotees at this point, yeah.
Gurudev, one more question I had was about, how not standing up in the arena where somebody respected is
Yeah.
sitting is quite common in the Bhagavatam stories.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the ones that comes to mind is when Lord Balram
Came in, yeah.
came in Ramasha, he killed Ramasha
Ramaharshana Sutta.
Sutta with the blade of grass.
Yeah.
So just to understand that pastime a bit better, as to did Lord Balram feel insulted, or was there a deeper
No.
meaning?
Lord Balaram was concerned
Yeah.
that he didn't follow the etiquette. Lord Balaram does not have false ego.
No. Yeah.
So he was concerned that here's a person who is giving Bhagavatam class. Can you imagine someone, let's say if I was giving Bhagavatam class and Krishna walks in. I said, sit down, Krishna. Listen to class. Don't disturb my speaking. You got problems. You shouldn't be giving Bhagavatam. Get off. As the famous song goes, what was that? Oh, Boy George. Bow down, mister. You ever heard that song?
Not really.
Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. You know that song? Yeah. I mean, he was favorable to Krishna consciousness. So, I'm not saying he's an acharya. But just the song is bow down, mister. So, in other words, Prabhupada did the same thing. Even when the devotees wouldn't offer obeisances properly, they would just put their head on the ground and come up immediately. Prabhupada would just say, what is this chopping obeisance? Because Prabhupada wanted to establish the proper standard. If someone doesn't have a proper standard, then they have to be corrected. Just like, actually one of my godbrothers, Tejas, was telling me a funny story. That because Prabhupada insisted upon, the whole pranam mantra being recited. So, one time he came into Prabhupada's room and offered his obeisance, and Prabhupada started asking him questions at the beginning of the obeisance, Namah. So Tejas Prabhu, so he's thinking, what do I do? I haven't said the obeisance. so while he's still down there, he replies to Prabhupada. And then he continues on, Vishnu Padaya, and then Prabhupada asks him another question. And this way, it takes like 20 minutes to go through the mantra, and Prabhupada's continues down the whole time. But Prabhupada was very pleased with that. Prabhupada was just very pleased, because not because he had any ego, wanted people to worship him. Like, what do you get out of someone worshiping you? Unless you have an ego, a big ego. I mean, like when you get your feet bathed, what do you get out of it? Not that I don't clean my own feet.
Wet feet. Get wet feet.
You get wet feet, fungus on the nails. So many problems occur because of that. People just take forever taking your socks off. And so, but the point is that it's for their good. And out of compassion. So basically, so out of compassion, Balaram did that. And he wasn't qualified. He was leading the sages at Naimisharanya. Remember that. Ramaharshana Sutta wasn't just giving an ordinary Bhagavatam class. He was leading this important assembly of these sages. And so Lord Balaram had to set an example. Of course, the sages also said later that, you shouldn't have done this. Because we had given him the benediction of a long life.
You just took it away.
So what are you going to do about it? So what Balaram did is he transferred that benediction to Ramaharshana Sutta's son, Sutta Goswami. And Sutta Goswami is one of the main speakers of the Bhagavatam. He was the one who repeated what was going on between Shukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit to the sages in Naimisharanya during this 1,000-year sacrifice. So, anyway, so it had a purpose. So Prabhupada would chastise sometimes too. But he would never curse. He would never curse someone or ever start a fight. He would just chastise, what are you doing? Like that. And Prabhupada would say, if someone doesn't properly respect, after some time they'll go away. So that's the thing with Lord Balaram. He's God. He has the right to be proud.
Of course.
That's not, Krishna is definitely proud, but it's not false pride. Because you are. Krishna is everything. That's pretty prideful for someone to say, Aham sarvasya prabho matak sarvam pravartate. I'm the source of everything. If I was to say that, what's going on with you? You've got some mental problems here. But because Krishna says it, it's right. It's just a fact. And he has a right to be proud. We have a right to be proud of our devotion because that belongs to us. Let's say, I have an attraction for chanting and hearing. Not that we brag about it, but, whatever. Because that's ours. That's the one thing that you can possess, devotion. Everything else belongs to Krishna. Devotion doesn't come from Krishna. It comes from Bhakti, which ultimately is Srimati Radharani. But you can possess devotion. But you can't possess anyone, you can't possess anything. And you can't possess any talent. Krishna takes something away and you become dumbfounded.
Mm-hmm.
You become proud. Even at workplace, you're supposed to conduct a seminar, and all of a sudden the words just don't come out of your mouth. And Krishna's just gotta be humble. Okay, Krishna, help. So, like Draupadi, she was trying to fight with Dushashan, right? And that's, of course, we can't say Draupadi had false ego, but she was trying to fight against him when he was disrobing her. And she ultimately just threw up her hands, out the window. And Krishna helped. Krishna helps a Kinchana Gotra when one actually throws their hands up. And helps. Krishna helps. All right, any other questions? Yeah.
Thank you for the class, Gurudev. Just one, it's not directly related to the class though.
Yeah.
Like Vedavyasa, who is considered as a literary incarnation of Lord.
Yeah, he is.
Krishna
He is,
himself.
yeah.
But there are a lot of Puranas, like say Shiva Puran when we take. He glorifies Shiva being the origin or the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
In one sense, he is.
Yeah, so like being in this Kali Yuga, already we are confused. So like when we interpret different interpretations and still get confused more. So what could be the rationale for literary incarnation to glorify different demigods in different Puranas?
That's interesting. Of course, even you have Indra in the Rig Veda, who is, most of the prayers of the Rig Veda are actually to Indra, which is interesting. Of course, there's also that verse, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Pada Pasanti Yat Suryad. All the demigods there looking to Vishnu. Because people are at different levels, in different modes of nature. To worship Krishna, you really have to have some mode of goodness. If you're in the mode of ignorance, it's kind of hard to worship Krishna. So you need, like Lord Shiva's Bhutanath. So he's ideal. So for those Puranas are meant for those people in the mode of ignorance. Now, what you're pointing out is very confusing. So therefore, Narada Muni points out to Srila Vyasadeva, this is from the Bhagavatam, that you're confusing people, basically. So you have to compile the Bhagavatam. All these other things, the Mahabharata, can be very confusing as to who God is. Krishna appears like a little trickster with some mystic powers, except for in the Mahabharata, except for the section where the Bhagavad Gita is. If you go to the Mahabharata, it's just like, Krishna's like lying, cheating, playing tricks. He is a good mystic yogi. And once in a while he whips out a universal form. Like in front of Duryodhana, But that's just his trick. He's just a mystic yogi or a powerful person. But the Bhagavad Gita is something different. So one could become confused by the Mahabharata, which is actually what Narada Muni accuses Vyasadeva of doing. And he says, you're encouraging people in material life in the name of self-realization. So therefore you should compile the Bhagavatam. So we take the Bhagavatam as supreme amongst the Puranas. It's the spotless, Amala Purana, the spotless Purana. And so, but the Shiva Purana has a place. Lord Shiva, in one sense, is the father of everyone in this material world. The original Prajapati, at least in this world. Krishna's glance manifests Shambhu, and Shambhu actually interacts with the material nature. So Lord Shiva is a very special position.
Even in Rig Veda, I think there was a shloka which says Shivaya Vishnu Rupaya Shivaya.
Yeah.
So it's
Almost the same, yeah. I mean, in one sense there's non-difference and also difference. Yes, the Chincha Beta Beta Tapa. In one sense, even the Jiva soul is non-different from Krishna. In the sense that qualities rather than quantities. So, one has to understand the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya, the Chincha Beta Beta Tapa, really explains everything. How things are the same and different from Krishna in many different ways. I mean, in one sense, the material energy can be considered non-different from Krishna. In another sense, different. Also Krishna is incarnations. It couldn't be explained like that. So, yeah, it's important to understand the Chincha Beta Beta Tapa. Otherwise, one gets very confused reading these things. And another point is many of these Puranas are not there in their original state. They've been changed. That's another point. They've been, I don't want to say monkeyed with, but they've been changed. Madhvacharya makes that point, Sripad Madhvacharya makes that point very nicely in his commentary on the Mahabharata, Tatparata Niranaya, his commentary, where he talks about the Mahabharata and some of the Puranas have actually been changed, things added, things taken away, or things adjusted within the text. So we have to understand that too. And sometimes some of these Puranas are modern interpolations because they haven't been passed down through disciplic succession. I mean, just like many times the devotees will quote the Bhavishya Purana. But the scholars tend to say that the language in the Bhavishya Purana is more modern. Bhavishya means what will happen in the future. It's future Purana. They say, this was predicted, that was predicted, that was predicted. But sometimes predictions can be ex post facto. Actually, but one interesting thing I just was reading last night in the Vedas, this is so interesting, that, just as far as cosmology is concerned, this actually proves how the Vedic science is amazing, that if you multiply, let's see if I get this right, if you multiply the diameter of the Earth with the diameter of the Sun, you actually get the distance between the Earth and the Sun. Multiplied by 108. Did you know this? You heard about this before?
It's in Hanuman Chalisa, they say as well.
Yeah. You actually get the distance of 93 million miles. The modern distance. And also with the moon and the Earth, what is that? Yeah, it's 108. The same thing with 108 times 108. You get the distance between the moon and the Earth. The average distance, because the distance changes.
Yeah.
It changes with the time of the year, the time of the month, and everything like that. The apogee and perigee, of the moon. So I thought that was quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
108. So the significance, 108 gopis, and it's just like seems like a universal number. This 108. It's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I do very much.
I mean, even with even if you have 8, I mean, you have computers like it, isn't it?
Yep.
And 64, 8 times, multiples of 8, 64, isn't it?
Yep.
You talk about the processors and everything like that.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. Like there's a lot of connection between different Vedic statements and just observable phenomena in the modern world. I found that quite interesting. Like 108 times the diameter of the sun and the Earth gives you the 93 million miles. Try it. Measure it. Not that we throw out modern science. There is that 93 million miles distance. And you can measure it yourself through triangulation if you want. It's not that hard. Okay, any other questions? Yeah.
Gurudev, so today we saw like how like Roma Harshan Sutta was corrected by Balaram,
Yeah.
or Daksha was corrected by Lord Shiva, and you were mentioning even Prabhupada chastising or like correcting his disciples. But you were mentioning yesterday also like one of the weeds is like fault finding. So does that mean like one cannot fault find or like correct others unless they are completely pure?
No, one should follow the injunction of Krishna in the Gita where he says, austerities of the speech. Sacha priya hitam. What does that mean? It's not that you have to wait to become a pure devotee to correct others. Let's say your wife is driving a car on the wrong side of the street. I can't tell because I'm not a pure devotee. Otherwise, how could you run the Krishna conscious movement? You couldn't correct people. So you don't wait till that time. No, but you use the standard of speech, sacha, truthfulness. And you also have a cool mind while you're doing it. You don't do it out of anger. You don't lose it. Truthful, pleasing, beneficial. You understand? Use that statement. So, your wife is driving on the wrong side of the street. It's true, she is. But you can't say, you rascal. You just say, Priya, would you like to drive on the right side of the street? we could die very soon. Sometimes heavy words are required. I remember we were in the bus in South India and we going down the motorway on the road. You remember that? I was upset. I was sitting up front with the driver. I think he took the exit for the motorway deliberately.
Yeah, on the wrong side.
Yeah, it's not that he made a mistake. This is India for you.
Yeah.
Cars are coming, It's definitely transcendental. You remember that
I
well, right?
remember that. There's a guy hanging out telling others to move away.
Yeah.
He's on the wrong side.
What an interesting experience
It
that
was.
was, that trip. You should all try it sometimes. I'm not going to do that trip again, but... Okay, I think we should end now because you all have to get to work and I have to do deity worship. We have a program today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
A lot of people watching. Wow. Usual crowd. Thank you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Tomorrow we'll take questions from the audience too.